All right, ready to dive in. Today we're going to be looking at the power of small actions, but consistent actions over time.
Small but mighty.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a great mix of stuff to work with today. Um, Excerpts from those notes that you sent over from January 23rd, 2025,
Oh, cool.
and then also Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect.
Nice. Yeah, but those should pair really well together, I think. You know, it's funny how both of those sources, even though they come from such different places, um, they both really emphasize that same idea, that these tiny little actions that you do consistently, they can really create these huge shifts in your life.
Totally. And it's so easy to get caught up in like looking for the magic bullet of the shortcut. It's so much more about like slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not about finding that one weird trick. It's about building something brick by brick. So speaking of building, one of the first things that jumped out at me from your notes was that idea of why power.
Yeah, I remember jotting that down. It was, I don't know, it just kind of hit me like, oh, it's so much easier to stay motivated when you actually know the why behind what
Yeah.
you're doing, right?
It's huge. If you think about it, it's the difference between saying, I want to lose weight, which, okay, fine, but what's going to get you out of bed on a cold morning to go to the gym? It's knowing the deeper why, like, I want to have more energy to play with my kids, or I want to feel more confident. It's that emotional fuel that keeps you going when things get tough.
Okay, so how do you like figure that out? If someone's listening and they're like, okay, I get it. Why power? But how do I actually figure out what my why is for this goal that I'm working towards?
Yes. It's a bit like peeling an onion. You got to keep asking yourself why. For example, let's say your goal is to write a book. Ask yourself, why do I want to write a book? And maybe your answer is because I want to share my story. But then you keep going, okay, why is that important? Maybe it's because I think it could help other people who've gone through similar challenges. Keep digging until you hit that core emotional reason that really lights you up.
Oh, so it's like almost like uncovering the engine behind your actions, right? Like that's the thing that's really going to drive you forward.
Exactly, exactly.
And speaking of driving forward, there's this other concept from my notes, Big Mo. It sounds kind of mysterious when you just like say it like that.
I love that, Big Mo.
Yeah, it sounds like some kind of like secret code or something.
Yeah.
But really, it's just momentum, right? It's that force that kicks in once you start taking consistent action.
Okay, so give me like a visual for that because I'm having trouble picturing. Okay, so imagine you're pushing this big heavy cart, right? At first, it takes a ton of effort to get it moving, but once it starts rolling, it gets easier and easier to keep it going. That's momentum. And it's the same with our goals.
So the more consistently we take action, the more we build up this big mo that helps us stay on track.
Precisely. It's like that snowball rolling down a hill. Each action adds another layer of snow, and before you know it, it's this unstoppable force.
I love that image. And it makes me think of something from Darren Hardy's book. He talks about growing up with a father who was incredibly disciplined. Like this guy woke up at 6 a.m. every day, no matter what, and hit the gym.
Yeah, I remember that story. He even describes hearing those iron weights hitting the concrete floor every morning and how it was this constant reminder of his dad's commitment to consistency.
Yeah, and it makes you realize it's like consistency isn't just about willpower. It's also about creating an environment, a routine, a rhythm that makes it almost impossible to not follow through.
Absolutely. It's like setting up those dominoes. You line them up perfectly so one small push creates this amazing chain reaction.
It's so true. And that reminds me of another great analogy Hardy uses in the book, The Tortoise and the Hare.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've all heard that story a million times, but he kind of brings this fresh perspective to it.
Oh, I love how he uses that classic tale to illustrate the power of consistency over intensity. The hare represents all those people who burst out of the gate full of energy and excitement, but they burn out quickly.
They run out of steam.
Exactly. They lack that staying power. Meanwhile, the tortoise, slow and steady, plodding along consistently, is the one who ultimately wins the race.
I mean, it's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race.
Right. And Hardy's point is that most of us, we tend to overestimate what we can do in a short burst of effort.
Like a sprint, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we underestimate what we can achieve over the long haul if we just keep taking those small, consistent steps.
It's like a marathon runner doesn't sprint the whole race, right?
Yeah.
It's about pacing yourself and finding a sustainable rhythm.
You got it. And speaking of sustainable rhythms, one of the stories that really stuck with me from the compound effect is about these three friends. Larry, Scott, and Brad,
Oh, yeah.
who start out in pretty similar places in life, but they end up on these vastly different paths.
Yeah, and it's all because of these tiny little choices they make, right?
Right. It's crazy how those seemingly insignificant decisions can snowball over time. Like Scott decides to cut just 125 calories from his diet each day, read 10 pages of a good book, and walk an extra mile. None of those things on their own are earth-shattering, right?
No, they sound pretty doable, actually.
Exactly. But over a couple of years, those small changes lead to him losing weight, getting a promotion, his marriage thriving. It's incredible. Then you've got Brad, who makes a few small negative choices, watching a little more TV, indulging a bit more, skipping the gym.
And it all adds up, right?
Yeah, he ends up gaining weight, missing out on a promotion, feeling unhappy. It just shows you the power of those small choices, good or bad, compounding over time.
It really makes you think about those little things we do every day. Like Hardy uses this great analogy, the idea of a penny doubling in value every single day for a month.
Yeah, that one blew my mind.
Right.
Most people would choose $3 million today over a single penny.
Yeah, I think I would.
Seems like a no-brainer, right? But what most people don't realize is that when that penny doubles every single day for 31 days, you end up with over $10 million. That's the magic of compounding.
I mean, it's wild. So how do we apply that to our lives? Like, what are those small pennies that we might be overlooking in terms of our goals and our habits?
That's such a good question, and that's actually something we're going to dig into a lot more in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good. So to recap everything we've talked about today, we started off talking about why power, the driving force behind our goals.
Right.
Then we moved into Big Mo, that force of momentum that keeps us moving forward. And we also touched on how even those seemingly insignificant choices that we make each day, they can really add up to big results over time.
It's all connected, for sure.
Yeah. So be sure to join us for part 2, where we're going to be exploring even more practical strategies for putting all these ideas into action.
Can't wait. You know, one thing that really hit home for me from Hardy's book was how he kind of debunks this whole idea of like finding a shortcut to success.
Oh, yeah, that get-rich-quick mentality.
Yeah, he calls it the microwave mentality, like
Yeah.
this expectation that we should see results instantly, and then when we don't, we just give up.
I mean, I get it. Like, we live in a world of instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
But you're so right. Real lasting change, it just doesn't happen overnight.
It's so true. It's about those daily habits, those little things you do consistently that really make the difference.
Yeah, it's like you're planting a seed and you have to nurture it and be patient. You're not going to get a full-grown tree overnight.
Exactly, exactly. And, you know, while we're on the topic of things that people often get wrong, Hardy also talks about luck.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because so many people think success is all about luck.
Yeah, and he doesn't deny that random events happen, but he believes that we actually create our own luck by being prepared, by having a positive mindset, and by taking action when opportunities come our way.
So it's about putting yourself out there and actually creating those opportunities.
Exactly. It's like that saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you respond.
It's so true. I think back to some things that I thought were really unlucky at the time, but then they led to these amazing opportunities that I never would have had otherwise.
Exactly. And it's all about how you choose to see things, right? And speaking of seeing things differently, Hardy shares this really cool story about how he started keeping a gratitude journal for his wife.
Oh, wow. Like writing down things he was grateful for about her.
Exactly. And he focused on her positive qualities, and it actually transformed their marriage. Just the simple act of shifting his focus to the good things.
It's so cool how something so small can have such a big impact.
It is. It is. It's like you're training your brain to see the possibilities instead of just getting stuck in the problems.
So even when things are tough, if we can focus on the good, it can actually change our reality.
That's the idea. And it ties into another key concept Hardy talks about, which is taking 100% responsibility for our lives.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It means not blaming other people or circumstances. It means owning our choices, both the good and the bad.
So it's about empowerment,
Right.
realizing that we actually have the power to change things.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting because Hardy explains that a lot of our behavior is actually driven by unconscious habits.
We're like robots sometimes,
Yeah.
just going through the motions.
We are. But the good news is that we can actually reprogram those habits. We can get rid of the negative ones and install positive ones.
Okay, but how? Like, that sounds really hard.
It's definitely a process. But Hardy outlines a bunch of practical techniques for making it happen. Remember, why power. That's a big one. Knowing your why helps you stay motivated when you're trying to change a habit. He also talks about using public accountability.
Oh, so telling people about your goal.
Exactly. It makes you more likely to follow through when you know other people are watching. And he talks about surrounding yourself with a supportive environment.
Okay, so like finding your tribe.
Exactly. People who will cheer you on and hold you accountable. And he's a big believer in tracking your progress, like actually writing things down.
Does that really make a difference? Like, I'm not a big journaler.
It can be huge because when you see those small wins day after day, it keeps you motivated and it shows you that all those little things are actually adding up to something big. He tells this great story about how he helped his assistant become a millionaire by starting with just a tiny habit of saving $33 a month.
Wow, that's amazing. So it really does show that even small amounts, when compounded over time, they can create these huge results.
Right, it's all about consistency. And you know that brings us back to Big Mo. Once you get that ball rolling, it's easier to keep it going.
It's like that snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
Getting bigger and bigger.
Exactly. But if you slack off, even for a little while, you lose that momentum and you have to start building it up all over again. Hardy has this great analogy. He compares it to pumping water from a well. It takes a ton of effort to get the water flowing at first, but once it's going, it's easier to maintain.
Oh, I love that. I can totally visualize that.
Right. So it's about finding that balance between pushing yourself and finding a pace that you can sustain.
So be the tortoise, not the hare.
You got it. Slow and steady wins the race. And to help you stay consistent, Hardy talks about bookending your days with intentional routines.
Bookending your days. I like that. So what kind of routines are we talking about?
Well, he shares his own morning and evening routines, which include things like expressing gratitude, reviewing his goals, doing some personal growth activities, and then reflecting on the day's wins and lessons.
Oh, so it's not just about having a routine. It's about being really intentional with how you start and end your day.
Right. He calls it cashing out your day, like reviewing your performance, making adjustments, acknowledging your successes, and then figuring out what you can improve on for the next day.
It's like taking stock of your day instead of just letting it slip away.
Exactly. And even with the best routines, Hardy emphasizes that it's important to shake things up every now and then.
Oh, yeah, I totally get that. Like sometimes I get into a rut and I'm like, ugh, I need to try something new.
Yeah, we all need that. He suggests trying new things, stepping outside of your comfort zone, adding some adventure into your life.
So it's not just about being disciplined. It's about keeping that spark of passion and excitement alive.
You got it. Now, while you're embracing those new experiences, Hardy also talks about this idea of multiplying your results by going above and beyond what's expected. He calls them wow moments, those times when you really exceed expectations.
So like going the extra mile and doing more than people ask?
Right, like he shares this example of Oprah giving away cars to her entire audience, or when he proposed to his wife in Portuguese and got her brother's blessings, or even encouraging a friend to fly across the country for a job interview just to stand out.
Wow. Okay, those are some pretty impressive wow moments.
They are, and it's about being memorable, exceeding expectations, creating a reputation for excellence, showing that you're willing to go that extra mile.
And it can really make a difference in terms of your success.
It can, it really can. So we've talked about building momentum, creating routines, pushing ourselves beyond our limits. What else can we do to maximize the compound effect?
That's the big question.
Well, Hardy talks about something he calls filtering your input, which is all about being mindful of the information that you consume.
Oh, yeah, he's big on limiting exposure to negative news, right?
Exactly, because it can really drag you down, right?
Totally. Like, I try to limit how much news I watch because it just gets me all stressed out.
Yeah, it's not good for anyone. So he suggests creating a personal junk filter, basically curating the information you allow into your mind.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about avoiding the bad, it's about replacing it with good.
Right. So he's a big advocate for reading books, listening to podcasts, audiobooks, anything that's going to uplift you and expand your thinking.
Okay, so we're talking about being proactive about what we're feeding our minds.
Exactly. And he talks about turning his daily commute into drive time you by listening to instructional podcasts and audiobooks. It's a great way to make the most of that time.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I spend so much time in the car. I could definitely be using that time more wisely.
Right. And speaking of good influences, Hardy also talks about choosing your associations really carefully, surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, support your goals, and challenge you to grow.
I've heard that before, like you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, it's so true. So who are those 5 people in your life? And how can you be more intentional about who you're spending time with?
It's about being selective about who you let into your inner circle.
Exactly. And Hardy even suggests creating a personal board of advisors, mentors, and role models you can turn to for guidance and support.
Oh, I love that. Like your own personal dream team.
Right. And beyond the people you surround yourself with, Hardy also talks about the power of your environment, how your physical surroundings can impact your thinking and your mood, and even your level of success.
I've definitely noticed that. Like when my house is a mess, my mind feels like a mess.
Exactly. So, how can you create a space that supports the life you want to create? Artie actually tells a story about how he got inspired to achieve greater financial success after spending time in a wealthier neighborhood, just visualizing himself living in one of those beautiful homes.
So it's like creating a vision board for your life.
Exactly. And it's not just about the visuals, it's about creating a space that's free from distractions, a space where you can focus and be productive. He talks about limiting technology, being intentional about how you use your phone and your computer, and he even has a name for that constant barrage of information and notifications that we all experience.
Yeah, what is it? Like information overload or
He
something?
calls it digiphrenia. It's like this constant state of mental fragmentation.
Ugh, yes, I hate it.
We all do. We all do. So it's about setting boundaries, creating habits that allow you to use technology as a tool rather than letting it control you.
Like turning off notifications, scheduling
Mm.
specific times to check email.
Exactly. And, even with the best environment and the most supportive people, there are still going to be times when you hit a wall,
Oh yeah, those moments when you just want to give up.
right? Artie calls those moments of truth. When you're tempted to make an excuse, when you just want to throw in the towel.
Hmm.
He shares stories of athletes like Desiree Linden, who won the Boston Marathon despite horrible weather.
Oh wow.
Or Muhammad Ali and his rope-a-dope strategy. These are people who faced incredible challenges, but they found a way to push through.
So it's not about never struggling. It's about how you respond to those challenges.
You got it. And Hardy really emphasizes that those challenging moments are often the defining moments that separate those who achieve success from those who don't.
They're the moments that build your character, right?
Exactly. And he gives some strategies for overcoming those moments of truth, like reminding yourself of your why power, breaking down big goals into smaller steps, celebrating those small wins along the way.
Yeah, it's about building that mental toughness and resilience.
Right, because those difficult moments are where the greatest growth happens. So we've covered a lot of ground in this part, from creating habits and routines to filtering your input, choosing your associations wisely. And we've also talked about pushing through those tough moments and creating an environment that supports your goals. But there's one more crucial aspect of the compound effect we need to explore: how we approach our personal growth and the mindset that we bring to this whole process. And that's what we'll be diving into in the final part of our deep dive.
You've given us so much to think about already. So before we move on, I want you to take a second and think about what's resonating with you the most. What idea or strategy are you most excited to start trying out in your own life? Keep that in mind as we wrap up our exploration of the compound effect.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the compound effect.
And I am pumped for this part because we're going to be talking about the mindset piece.
Yes, this is where it all comes together.
Yeah, like we've got all the tools and strategies, but now we need to figure out how to actually use them effectively.
Exactly. And Hardy does a great job of bringing everything together by emphasizing that success isn't about finding some magic formula, but about embracing this ongoing process of getting better.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about constantly learning and growing.
Yes. He even encourages readers to think of themselves as a work in progress, to focus on the journey, not just the destination.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
It really does. It really does. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about knowing that we're always learning and evolving.
And you know something else that I think a lot of people struggle with is patience.
Oh, tell me about it. We live in a world of instant gratification.
Exactly. But like you were saying earlier, real change takes time, right?
It does. And Hardy stresses that the compound effect takes time, so we need to resist that urge to give up too soon just because we don't see those overnight results.
It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's sprouted yet.
Exactly. We need to trust the process. And to help with that, Hardy suggests using visualization.
Oh, interesting. Like picturing yourself achieving your goals.
Exactly. Feeling those emotions of success, making those goals so real in your mind that they become almost inevitable.
So it's like you're creating this mental blueprint for the future you want to build.
I like that. That's a great way to put it. And it's important to remember that success isn't just about achieving those external goals.
Right. It's about who you become along the way.
Exactly. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
It's about aligning your actions with your values, feeling good about who you are and what you're doing in the world.
Yes. And Hardy encourages readers to find ways to give back, to use their success to make a difference in the lives of others, recognizing that true fulfillment often comes from contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
It's like that ripple effect we talked about earlier, how our actions can have a positive impact that goes way beyond ourselves.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the compound effect and your incredible notes, I think the biggest takeaway here is this. Small, consistent actions over time create extraordinary results.
It's about embracing those daily disciplines, filtering our input, surrounding ourselves with the right people, and creating an environment that supports our goals.
And it's about recognizing that success isn't this magical thing that's reserved for a select few. It's a process that anyone can use to achieve amazing things.
Yeah, it's about taking control of your life, making those positive choices every day, and trusting that all those efforts will add up over time to create a life that's beyond your wildest dreams.
I love that, and I want to leave everyone with this final thought. The compound effect is always at work, whether you're aware of it or not. The question is, are you using it to your advantage, or are you letting it work against you?
Hmm, that's a powerful question to ponder. So to all of you listening, we encourage you to take what you've learned from this deep dive and start applying it to your own life today. Remember, even the smallest actions done consistently can create incredible results. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Deep Dive.
Okay, so we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into the compound effect.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
I'm really excited for this part because we're going to be talking about mindset,
Right.
which I feel like is so crucial.
It is. It's like we've gathered all these tools and strategies, but now we need to figure out how to actually use them effectively.
Exactly. So where do we even begin? What does Hardy say about developing the right mindset for success?
Well, he really emphasizes that it's not about finding some magic formula or being perfect all the time.
Right, because nobody's perfect.
Exactly. It's about embracing this ongoing process of getting better, like little by little every single day.
Oh, so it's more about progress over perfection. Yes. He actually encourages people to think of themselves as a work in progress, always striving to learn and evolve. It's about enjoying the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
I love that. It takes the pressure off.
It does. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about knowing that we're all constantly learning and growing.
And, one thing I've personally struggled with is patience. Like, I want to see results, and I want to see them now.
Oh, I totally get that. We live in a world of instant gratification, right?
Exactly.
But the thing is, the compound effect, it takes time. And Hardy really stresses that. Like, we have to be patient. We can't give up too soon just because we don't see those overnight results.
It's so tempting, though. It's like we're planting a seed, and then we keep digging it up to see if it's sprouted yet.
The best things in life take time to grow, right?
They do.
Yeah.
So how do we cultivate that patience? Like, any tips?
Well, one thing Hardy recommends is visualization.
Oh, interesting. So, picturing yourself achieving your goals?
Yes. Feeling those emotions of success, making those goals so real in your mind that they almost become inevitable. Like, you can already taste it.
So it's like you're creating this mental blueprint for the future you want to build.
Exactly. You're setting the stage. You're getting your mind ready for those amazing things to come.
I love that. And, I think it's also important to remember that success isn't just about those external goals, like the money or the job title.
It's about so much more than that.
Right. It's about who you become along the way.
Exactly. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to you.
It's about those values that we talked about earlier, making sure that your actions are in alignment with what's truly important to you.
Exactly. And Hardy actually encourages people to find ways to give back to others, to use their success to make a difference in the world.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's like that ripple effect, right? Our actions can have a positive impact that goes way beyond ourselves.
Right. It's about recognizing that true fulfillment, a lot of times, it comes from contributing to something bigger than ourselves. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the compound effect and your amazing notes, I think the biggest takeaway is that small, consistent actions over time can really create some extraordinary results.
It's about embracing those daily disciplines, being mindful of the information we consume, surrounding ourselves with those positive, supportive people, and creating that environment that sets us up for success.
It's about realizing that success isn't this like magical, mystical thing that only happens to a few lucky people. It's a process, and anyone can use this process to create amazing things in their life.
It's about taking control of your life, making those positive choices every single day, and trusting that it's all going to come together beautifully.
Yes, trust the process. And, I want to leave everyone with this final thought. The compound effect is always at work, whether we realize it or not. So the question is, are you using it to your advantage, or is it working against you?
That's a great question. It's a call to action. So to everyone listening, we encourage you to take all the amazing insights we've talked about today and start applying them to your own life. Remember, even the tiniest actions, those small steps that you take consistently, can lead to some truly incredible results. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the compound effect, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.